Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of 1YL or 1 Year Later. My name is Corey, as you know, and we have another awesome episode today on this podcast show, amplifying the voices of people taking adversity into their own hands and changing their world and the world around them. And today's special guest is my friend, Emily Escobedo. What's happening, girl?
Hey, Corey. Excited to be here.
Okay, so here's my first question. And as a host, I have to cut straight to the chase because I'm sure people mess this up all the time. And I might have just messed it up just out of happenstance. Is it Escobedo or Beto?
It's Beto.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, actually,
Patting myself on the back.
my dad, a lot of people say Escobedo, and I'm not like super picky. Like, I know last names are complicated. I'm not gonna like get mad at you for mispronouncing, but my dad's always like, that is not our last name. You need to talk to the announcers. And I'm like, Dad, I can't just like go up and like, first of all, they're like not on the pool deck. They're like in the stands. Like, I'm not just gonna go like up to the announcer and be like, hey, just if you say my name, please make sure you pronounce it right. So
Right. Oh, how funny.
but he gets upset. I have to do
Hey.
something about it before the summer, I guess.
Okay, yeah, for sure. But we'll let your dad know that I did get it right this time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He'll be
awesome.
very proud. He'll be excited.
Love it, love it. Well, okay, you guys know the drill. This is not a show about accolades, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a place so that we can jump from, and then we're going to hear about the last 365 days of Emily's life, little high-level conversation. But here are some cool, fun facts about Emily. She has been a swimmer her whole life, just like many other swimming stories. And many of you guys know that I also was a swimmer, so I can relate in some aspects until she really got awesome and I did not get awesome. So it's like going to be a cool story of me kind of talking to some people, to a person who was in the shoes of the heroes that I looked up to growing up, which is pretty exciting for me, selfishly. But she took her swimming career to UMBC. She grew up in New York, by the way, and she still lives in New York, right outside of the city. And now she's a professional swimmer, which, for those of you who don't know how you could become a professional swimmer, she has been on the national team. She does get a little bit of money to then swim, which is how you become a professional in your sport, if you didn't know that. And yes, there is money in swimming a little bit. We wish there was more, but it is what it is.
One
She's
day.
One day we will be looking at you like LeBron James. I'm not sure if it will be that
I'll be
high.
right there.
Yeah. So, professional swimming also took itself to a new organization called the International Swim League, where she was a member of the New York Breakers. And this past year, if you watched the episode, everyone, with Caitlin Sandino, she talked a little bit about their trip over to Hungary. And Emily was on that trip this year, which got her some training. So I'm sure she'll chat about that as well. But in the meantime, she is training for the Olympic Games coming up this summer, and we are very stoked to hear about her journey today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Corey.
Let's do it. Okay, you guys, we started out everywhere we always do. Emily, my first question for you. I want to know where you were, to your best recollection, 1 year ago today. Physically, mentally, emotionally, we're like mid-April. Where were you mid-April 2020?
Yeah, so I guess it kind of goes back. I'm going to start in March, if that's okay. So last March, we were away. I was at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado in that like beginning of pandemic phase. So I was supposed to be there for 2.5 weeks. Coming up onto week 2, that's when shit hit the fan. Everything started going crazy. And we actually got kicked out of the training center. So that was like where this whole thing started. I wasn't even home. So New Rochelle, which is the city that I'm from, was like the containment center in the very beginning of the pandemic. So
that's right, because so much crazy was happening in New York at the get, right? From the rest of the country was looking at New York. We're like,
yeah. And New Rochelle, my little city, like hometown, was the epicenter. That's like where it started at all. I don't know if you remember, but like the Jewish temple, that's kind of like where it started. That was like a mile up the street from me. And then whole city shut down, like my area. And, that's when like troops came in and like they were doing the barricading type things. It wasn't like as dramatic as the news made it seem. But
Sure.
yeah, so we were just like less than a half a mile out of the epicenter where it was like the containment zone and it was like locked down, super stressful. So I'm like away during this time, just watching the news and calling my family just like confused. They kicked us out of the training center essentially because they had to shut down at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock p.m. We found out about it and we had to get on our flights the next morning. So we had like not even 12 hours to rebook flights and like refigure everything out. That was really stressful because going home, like most of the pools were either closed or in the process of shutting down. So I didn't know if I was, going home to like nothing, nowhere to swim. So that was a little bit stressful, but got home, kind of reassessed, found a pool for like 3 or 4 days, and then that building shut down as well. And then all the pools in the area were closed. So I actually was really blessed. I work at a company called Swim Labs. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they have like infinity pools and you swim in place. So they let me come in even though they were shut down, and I just trained there for a few months. So
Amazing.
yeah, so I guess in April around this time, that's kind of what I was doing. I was swimming once a day in an infinity pool, doing like at-home dry land and at-home workouts, just going on like on the nicer days, going on a lot of walks with my dog, just like trying to stay fit and active, and just like figure things out. But yeah, it was definitely a little bit crazy those first 2 months or so.
Oh my gosh. Right. I remember like from just like a human standpoint, when the pools closed and we were inching towards summer, it was like, oh, what are we gonna do this summer? There's
Yeah,
like you
especially in
can't
California. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
right.
do we do it? I
Right.
mean, beach, sure, yeah, but even that
Exactly.
was tricky.
Right. And then yeah, the beaches were getting shut down. But I remember at one point last year I called you and I was like, so like, are you getting in the pool or do you have a pool? Like
Yeah,
what is the deal? So it's cool that you work at Swim Labs. I am really familiar with Swim Labs actually. They have
they
one
have
like
one where you
right
yeah.
down the street. So
Yeah, it's a really cool facility, and the owners were, like, amazing. They're good friends of mine now.
oh good.
Their daughter and some of their kids swim, and so I just got to know them pretty well, and, yeah, I was just really grateful. I was like, "Well, what," like, that was it. What else would I have been able to do? Like, especially, like, in New York at this time, it's not warm, I saw, like, other friends and national team members, like, putting up pools in their backyard, like, setting up, like, inflatable pools and swimming in place and just, like, tying ropes to each other. But obviously that wasn't going to work here. So I got really lucky with that. It was definitely
Oh my gosh.
like a different experience for sure. I was also dealing with an injury, so I was trying to do a lot of physical therapy and hindsight 2020, of course, but I think honestly, all in all, it worked out pretty well. We were all kind of in the same position. It wasn't like a lot like all over the world. You know what I mean? We all were in the same boat where a lot of people weren't swimming or training to their normalcy, and so we all just kind of had to figure out different things. It was kind of honestly like a body de-stressor, like I
Yeah.
wasn't doing doubles, I wasn't doing heavy lifting because I didn't have access to a gym, and kind of gave my body like a chance to relax. So that's kind of like the mentality, like once I figured out everything that was happening. And I think once we found out the Olympics were postponed, that was a huge de-stressor, because up until then we were all like, how are we going to continue to train at the level that we need to be at to perform well at trials and at the Olympics if we don't have access to a pool? Like that was the big stressor. And once they said, okay, we'll postpone the Olympics, then it kind of like chilled a little bit. And you were like, okay, so I have time. I don't need to, worry so much right now. I can kind of just take this time, work on myself as a person, as an athlete, get into different hobbies, do different things, and just like take care of myself in the best way that I can, and then move from there. So
I think that's great perspective. Like I do believe in the rest that did come with
yeah,
that time that we were away from so much. I know especially in my context in the gymnastics world, like these girls had never had more than a week or two off in their entire career. And now you're saying, hey, you can't be touching the uneven bars for 4 months.
yeah,
It's like things like that. Like there at first you're like, oh my gosh, will I ever be able to do a skill ever again? Or will I ever like hop into a long course pool ever
yeah,
again? But to another degree, you do have to shift your mindset and just be like, okay, actually, like I'm gonna take advantage of this and like
yeah,
do things that I couldn't normally do if I was heavy lifting and long course training and trials were next week
mhm.
and all those things that like there's so much pressure on it. So
Yeah,
totally
it
makes
definitely,
sense.
I mean, it kind of sucked in the beginning, but I think like that's the only mindset you kind of could have. You can't control it, so you can only worry about the things that you can't control and move on from there. I mean, the good thing is I feel like with a lot of us, and I feel like gymnasts too, like you realize, wow, I can kind of do a lot just like at home or in my backyard
Yep.
and stay in like pretty good shape. Maybe not like your perfect shape for your sport, but you can stay in shape and you realize like, oh, this is what it feels like when my body's not super sore and tired all the time. Like I have energy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a
Totally.
cool little experiment. But yeah, so it worked out okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, so my next question is, what were the two biggest challenges that you felt like you faced in the last 365 days, personally in your sport, whatever you want to pick on, and then we'll kind of transition more over to like how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing is just like having the plan and knowing what's going to happen and then realizing that that's not going to happen. Just like the adjustment period. And I think like that happened for me with a couple aspects of my life. I mean, first with swimming, and I had this whole plan for the summer and whole plan for this year. Like I knew it was going to happen. It was planned out. And the Olympics didn't happen, and then swimming was iffy, and you didn't really know what was happening. So that was just dealing with that and trying to like figure out, okay, now I have to kind of replan the next 2 years of my life in
Totally.
a way. And then also my wedding, as you know, my wedding got postponed. So that was another big thing that I was planning to happen. Like that was like the 2 year plan. You know what I mean? Like last summer I was supposed to like go to trials, maybe make the Olympics, who knows? And then I was supposed to get married after that. And so that was a whole big bust. So that just like the stress of having a plan fall through and having to just kind of like reassess where and what
Yeah.
is happening in your life in the future. So that was a big one. And I think the other part that was pretty hard for me. I mean, we tried as best as we could, but just like being engaged with family is very important to me, and I mean my family as well. And it was just we stayed in touch and we were able to see everybody from a distance, but it just like wasn't the same. You know what I mean? We always
Hmm.
had this big family gathering every year, which obviously couldn't happen last year. Like Easter and Christmas were just like kind of depressing, to be honest, if you
Hmm.
look back,
Yeah.
because they just like didn't really happen. And if they did happen, and if you saw people, you were all outside wearing masks, like taking photos from like 6 feet away. It was just
I
like
know.
very awkward. So those were definitely two things I had to adjust to. But I had a lot of extra free time, which was kind of cool. Got to do some things, like you said, that you can't really do when you're training full
Yeah.
time. And just kind of like enjoy just like each other, like family, the immediate family that you were with, each other's company a little bit more because everybody was home.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, and I think too, is to add a little bit more context and of your situation, your mom is a nurse in New
Yeah.
York, and your dad was a firefighter
Mhm.
in New York. And so from a 2020 perspective, like I would be remiss to not talk about like them being frontline workers amidst the pandemic
Yeah.
in and you like wanting to be around them, but them being in close
Yeah.
contact with others. And it I'm sure there was a little bit of like confusion at first of like what is okay, what isn't okay, but then it's like you kind of just have to like take the lead of probably your parents to like know what they're most comfortable with, and everyone's doing the best that they can to be safe. And um I'm sure there was like a little bit of weird like feeling in that too of like, mom, can I be close to you? Like you're
Yeah,
gonna have to
can you hang
you're going
out,
back.
or yeah, do I
Yeah,
have to wear a mask? Like
right.
it was super, it was definitely stressful. I mean, especially in the beginning and especially, in the area that we live, like I said, it was the epicenter. So like it was really stressful in the beginning because my dad is a firefighter and was, going to all these calls and coming in contact with everyone with COVID. And then they're saying like, oh, if you're over 50 years old, you're at risk. So be careful. And that's like super stressful for me to hear. And then
Hmm.
my mom as well, like traveling into the city. She started driving, which was good. But I mean, she was a pediatric oncology nurse. So it's not like she was like an ER nurse or anything, but she still
Hmm.
was going into New York City, which was not very good. And at a hospital, which was not very good. And so, yeah, definitely stressful on both accounts. And, the stories that she told me about just like her patients, like kids fighting cancer whose parents were not allowed to like stay with them, or if they would, it would only be one parent at a time. And then the other, like, then the wife or the husband would have to go a week without seeing their partner or significant other. And it just like seemed like such stress on the family. So that's what we were really worried about. My mom actually had COVID back in the beginning, I think in probably around this time, March or April.
Mm.
And it was just a mild case. So we were really lucky. My dad didn't get it, which was awesome. So it worked out okay. But yeah, when I got home from the trip and my dad picked me up, like immediately, like things were being sprayed. He went on like rampage. We had so many Clorox wipes in the house, and he was like super particular about it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
He would, like, grocery shopping. You'd come in the house, every item would be wiped down. The mail would be wiped down. You weren't allowed to move into the house. You didn't even take off your shoes. You walked in and you washed your hands first, and then you sanitized, and then you were allowed to like mingle or do whatever you want. It was he would wipe down like every handle, doorknob, the refrigerator, everything every day. And he did that for like many months. He was very intent about it, which was, I mean, it was good. It helped us. Nobody, aside from my mom, and even when my mom had it, nobody else got sick, which was pretty incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely an experience. It wasn't until I think probably like 6 months ago that he stopped like the craze of wiping every single thing down. I mean, he still hand sanitizes and stuff, but we're all vaccinated, so moving forward.
Yeah, one step at a time for sure. Yeah, no, I remember the day that Amazon delivered a UV wand to my house, and I was like, "What is this, Dad?" And he's like, "This is the way. This is how we're gonna move forward." I'm like, "All right, let's do it."
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'm in. I'm so in. Okay, cool. So it sounds to me like in the last year there was obviously like swimming challenges. There was your wedding getting postponed. There was, COVID heightened awareness, and that just being something that like you had to be really mindful of, especially with your parents being in the industry that they are, and then obviously like the emotional side of like not being able to gather with your family and that being such an important part of your life. Like there's like those moments that all happen in the last 365 days. But like if we fast forward to where you are today, like could you tell us like a little bit of maybe like two turning points that you felt like were moments in time where you had a little bit more hope of what the future is going to look like, or where what your now could look like? That those moments in time really were turning points that brought you hope to get to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one turning point would have been back in October, November, when I was away, like you said, in Budapest with the New York Breakers, just like able to compete. And it was like the first time we had, all been back together again and been able to race and just train in a real pool and not have to worry about like swimming in an infinity pool or swimming outside of New York in October. And it was just awesome. It was a really cool experience. I mean, getting back to train full time and having like ample pool time, but just like being able to interact with teammates. And I mean, it was super, we had to wear masks all the time. It was very safe. We got tested every 5 days, but just being, away from, the place that you've been for so long. I mean, I used to travel a good bit. So just being able to travel and get out and, like train and have a team and race and, perform pretty well. Was definitely a big, mindset change moving forward. It was just really exciting. And I was grateful with all the experiences. I was grateful with like my swims, and made me realize, oh, maybe like this year was beneficial. You know what I mean? For me personally, maybe I have a better chance at, making the team this year because we had an extra year to train. So
a question on that. When was the last time you had raced prior to going to Budapest?
Oh, maybe January.
Wow.
Yeah, I think. I don't think.
Yeah, it did.
It was either January or February because in March I was away and that's when everything hit the fan. So yeah,
wow.
It was a long time.
So I feel like you probably kind of like dove off the blocks in your first race in an ISL meet, and you're like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I think we were all talking about it. We were like, either this is going to go so good because we're all like hyped up on adrenaline, or it's just going to go really bad because none of us really remember what to do, like racing. I mean, it seems like, yeah, you train every day and like, that's fine. And obviously I would like race and practice every once in a while, but just like, hype and the nerves that you get before like a meet or a competition or a race is not comparable. So
No.
yeah, and it's like a skill. Like you have to train to race. You can't just like swim laps in a pool and expect to be able to get up on the blocks and race. So yeah, it was really cool. I mean, it was so
Wow.
fun.
That's so cool. I mean, I was just conceptualizing that, like, some people, like, their sport doesn't hinge so much on the skill of
Yeah,
what actual racing, like, provides you, and not to mention the sport of swimming, like, the Tier Pro Series and all of those meets really do start happening come, like, the month of March, April, May,
yeah.
especially leading up
And Olympic
to
year. Yeah.
when Olympics are happening, that man, you it really got swept out from under you
Yeah, it
guys.
was a really long time, but,
Right. Crazy.
yeah,
Okay, and
the first meet I actually did pretty well. I was like, "Oh, look at that." I think, like I said, I was just, like, so excited to be able to,
yeah,
I, like, wasn't feeling pain in that race, you know?
right,
Like, excited
right.
to be there.
Gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so then another turning point of this last year, do you have, anything else that comes to mind that kinda brought you some hope?
Yeah, I think, like, when my grandma got the vaccine, like, when we started getting vaccinated, that was, like, a big turning point because, I mean,
Yes.
it meant that, maybe things were getting better, like, there's light at the end of the tunnel, especially, like, with me and the wedding getting postponed. It actually, I don't know if I told you this, but we actually had to, so we postponed it to the new date, and then the venue closed, so we had to find a brand new venue and a brand new date, and that happened, like, a month and a half ago, so that was just, like, extra stress, and of
Yeah.
when you're signing these contracts and stuff, they're like, want a minimum guarantee of people. And you're like, well, I can't guarantee a minimum number of people because I don't understand like what's gonna happen.
Mhm,
What is the summer gonna look like, with these new variants? Or are these vaccines gonna work? Are they gonna be you know what I mean? There were so many
mhm,
what ifs, but I think like that was a big turning point. Like once we all started being able to get vaccinated and
mhm.
like realize, oh hey, we can kind of gather now. Like we had an Easter. It wasn't like a super normal Easter, but we had
Yeah.
people in the house, you know what I mean?
Right,
And my
right.
grandma kept her mask on, but there were
Yeah.
people and it was like cool. And so that was like a big
Good.
turning point. So a
That's so cool. That's so
little
cool.
bit of
Yeah.
hope for the summer.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, when I, like, hear these turning points, like, obviously, it's a kind of, like, thoughtful and retrospective question, right? Because to some degree, I feel like a lot of us just kind of had to put our heads down and get through the last year,
Yeah.
like, in a lot of ways, and when I originally, like, thought of the idea for this podcast, like, the whole idea was really, it was that. It was the ability for us to chat through a retrospective view on the last year and really pull out some of those pieces of like, man, I did face something that was really hard and that was a big challenge.
Yeah.
But then these were moments that really like turned my mentality around that then got me to a place that whether you're in a better place now or maybe like I know some people that they still don't have a job or they're still kind of like
Yeah.
fighting for what's next in their life. Like whatever it might look like there's still some gold to fight through or to like sift out of their
Mhm.
heart and like be able to pat ourselves on the back for really like getting through an I
Yeah.
this was the
It's super
buzzword of
crazy.
2020 but like the unprecedented
Yeah.
year that we all faced, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
um but it's cool to just like hear how you process through all of those pieces and also just like I mean, it makes me thrilled to hear that like you guys are like vaccinated and things are moving forward and like is your mom still driving to work? I loved hearing that like that your mom
Yeah,
went from
so
like
she's not taking the train yet. She's still driving. I mean, I don't know how much longer she's gonna wanna do that,
yeah,
but she's right now she carpools with another person that works there, but
okay,
yeah, no, it's just I mean, in the beginning, my dad was, like, dropping her off and picking her up because she actually had, like, a really bad little Honda Civic that just, like, wasn't gonna make wasn't gonna make the drive if she kept doing it, so he would drop her off and pick her up because, like, that you don't think about it, but just, like, being on a train, a public place, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Subway. My grandma was all excited because she took the bus the other day. My mom let her take the bus for the first time in over a year because she doesn't
yeah,
drive. So she would take the bus to like do things or like go
yeah,
shopping. But now she's very disappointed because all of the shopping stores, like the malls, are like closing. Like Sears and like all her stores, like Macy's, you know what I mean? Like grandma's
yeah,
they're closing. So that I mean, especially like around here, it looks a lot different.
Yeah.
And things, like I said, are still not back to 100%. They're not back to normal, but it at least they're slowly making their way back
Mhm.
there, and there's like some hope. I mean, I remember in the beginning, like in March, that we're like, okay, we're gonna do like a 2 week shutdown, and then and then it's like a year later, and we were like, really, 2 weeks? But
Yeah.
no one understood, no one knew.
No.
So like people were getting so mad, but there's only so much you can do. You can't blame anybody for it. You can't control it. You just kind of have to find the benefits or the good things or see
Mhm.
like the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely the way to get through last year, in an odd way, we all went through really similar
yeah,
feelings, right? Like, I think you painted a good picture when you said, like, the fact that not only was, like, the US shutting down for COVID, which was impacting your ability to swim at the Olympic Games, but it was the whole world. And,
yeah,
like, I think very much in terms of sport, and, like, there was a fairness, this, like, weird aspect of fairness that, like, came about because everyone, literally the globe,
yeah. The globe was in the same boat.
was in the same boat and was trying to navigate it, right?
Just
And
like
it was
it's like kind of cool if you really think about it. Like I feel like never have just like as a world have we ever been like that united, even though it was like something bad that we were united over, but like in a way, like we were pretty united over this one common thing that for the first time ever we all
Yep.
experienced and we all can kind of relate to in some way or another. It's like
Yeah.
pretty
I
cool.
remember I remember when I heard that the Olympics were getting postponed, like, one of the first feelings that I had was, like, fast forwarding to 2021 when the opening ceremonies happen in whatever way, shape, or form that they happen, the 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 unity that I believe will come when every nation best athletes come together and get to represent their country and be able to do the sport that they love in the same location for the Olympic Games, and what all of that means to everyone, what that means to the spectator even. There's such a picture of unity there that I am, like, so
Yeah,
pumped
I didn't
to,
even think
like
of that. That's
to,
really
like
cool.
to watch, right, because
Yeah.
we did all really face, like, what the last year presented, but then we're all also going to, like, watch the world come together in a way to just, yes, compete against one another, but there is such beauty in, like,
Yeah,
camaraderie in, like,
celebrating that.
the 7 other people in the pool that you're racing next to,
Yeah,
like,
like
it
you're all
you're
equal, you know?
exactly, exactly,
Cool.
and so, I'm excited to, like, to knock on wood, hopefully get to watch that happen this summer and get to, like, really feel that feeling because 'cause I've just been, like, really excited to feel it, so
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
me too. Okay. Oh, my closing question that I ask every guest on 1 year later. Um, you can take a second to think about it if you want to. It's been known to be a thought-provoking question. The question is: did your 1 year ago self believe that you could be here 1 year later?
No, I don't think I mean, definitely not, for sure not. I was going into just, like, where I am in my swimming career, I think I was not at this level, I don't think, last year. Like, I feel like I'm higher. I feel like I have a better shot. I feel like I'm more prepared, like, mentally and physically, just, like, with the things, that I was able to do and accomplish and the experience that I was able to have, so I definitely don't think so. I mean, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna like I didn't even know if there was gonna be Olympics this year. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like they kind of like postponed it, but we were like, okay, what's happening? You don't just
Yeah.
postpone these things, but I mean, I guess you do in this
Yeah.
year. So no, I
Well,
don't think so.
Well, hey, you made it and you made it through, and we're excited to cheer you on. And you have one more meet and then the Olympic trials, and we're just so pumped to cheer you on through it all. And we're big fans of you over here in California, so keep it up. Okay, friends. Well, that was so fun. I was really excited to have Emily on today. I didn't tell her this, but I was excited to have her on because as a current swimmer, it's a sport that, like, I don't think a lot of people really understand the magnitude of what the pandemic really took away from them as athletes, and so I hope you all were able to get a little bit of a glimpse of what it looked like to not be able to dive off the blocks and race some teammates and get some fast swimming going for 6 to 8 months. But hopefully you also heard the hope that came alongside of her diving off the blocks when she did get to be in the bubble racing with the ISL, and now she's heading after chasing that birth to the Olympic Games, and we are so excited to cheer her on. So as you guys all know, we will have one new episode every single day. Before I sign off, thank you, Emily, for being on today. It was so awesome getting to hear your story.
Sorry.
All right, guys, tune in tomorrow for another episode, as you will every day in the month of April. But until then, hope you guys have an awesome day. See you later.
Bye.